Hello folks, I am at stop number 3. Internet connection's a bit dodgy here, so hopefully it'll be okay. So I'm in Parfouru-sur-Odon, the Odon Valley, you all know from Operation Epsom and the later campaign normally. So Tournai-sur-Odon, Epinay-sur-Odon are on that road there. And this is the church at Parfouru. And you've probably heard me talk about the fact that some churches around here have a green Commonwealth War Graves plaque. Well, this one doesn't, because there are no Commonwealth War Graves buried here. But what we do have here, I think, is pretty interesting. It's also being restored, the church, which is looking rather nice. They've been cleaning up all the stonework. And I'm pretty certain that what I'm going to show you now is unique in Normandy, where there are hundreds of churches in France with a single Commonwealth War grave, so a pilot or individuals killed there. This one has something different. Again, I hope the signal is okay as I go around the back here. And this does tie to the Villers-Bocage story, I promise. So with a full Christian burial are 3 German graves buried by the French and then given a proper headstone years after the war. So this is on the 11th of June, so 80 years ago, 2 days ago. And this is the part of the story that the Germans don't always talk about, their own losses. So when their propaganda machine went crazy after the Battle of Villers-Bocage, and they took all that footage of all the knocked out Cromwells and Shermans, and you heard me talk about that in the second video, what they don't talk about is the fact that they are losing crews, they are losing experienced tank personnel that they can't easily replace. Units like Panzer, and that's what we're talking about here, have experienced officers who've been there and done it in earlier campaigns, North Africa and what have you. And when they lose people, they can't replace them. And the key figure here, and you can look him up on the internet, is Oberstleutnant Franz Wilhelm von Schönberg-Woldenberg. So he's a German nobleman. You can look him up on the internet. I'll freeze on the grave there for a bit. So got the Oberstleutnant Prince Wilhelm von Schönberg-Woldenberg. And then his 2 fellow soldiers here, Obergefreiter Karl Fussel, and he was 44 years old when he was killed. Actually, he was 43. He was not up to his 44th birthday, killed on the 11th of June. And then to the other side is Oberleutnant Gerard Hermann, and he was 26 when he died on the 11th of June. So this is really significant because, and if Dr. Phil Blood watches this later on, essentially the Germans have very experienced tank crews. They have some experienced personnel across their here forces in Normandy, but they can't replace them with ample quality replacements. They've got some crews coming through, but the crews that are coming in are usually not as good, not as well trained. Now, British units like the Sherwood Rangers Yeomanry, which James Holland wrote about in Brothers in Arms, or the 24th Lancers, or the various Royal Tank Regiment and Royal Armoured Corps units, although they have an experienced set of personnel, Sherwood Rangers Yeomanry, who fought through North Africa, for example, and other units, they can phase in equally good tank crews with lots of training as they lose them in Normandy. And I would argue that units like the Sherwood Rangers Yeomanry do never really lose their edge. They just phase in these newer crews, and in fact they gain and learn together as they push on through the Normandy campaign to Germany. You can take that across the board with the Canadian units like the 1st Hussars and some of the other units in the 2nd Canadian Brigade later on. So the point is that the Germans can't replace the experience they lose in those first few days. They can't replace the vehicles either. Basically, if the Germans lose a Panther in Normandy, that's it. They can't replace it. They can repair a few of them, but not easily. The Allies, for all their the tragedy of the loss of tank crews, they can replace German tanks. They're coming off the boat in large numbers. They can replace half-tracks. They can replace the Cromwells and Comets later on. And by the way, this is an indication of the kind of terrain you get here as you push into the Odon Valley, which is part of the reason why, with the storm arriving on June the 19th, is that the advance does slow up. We begin at the end of the second week in Normandy, what people call Higher Willy, the attrition phase, because the Odon River that runs through that valley over there, you know, you're talking about choke points and stone bridges, and you've got the Germans using the ridges like that beyond us. And Panzer-Lehr, for my money, are one of the most effective tank divisions, German tank divisions in Normandy, because they don't do these stupid, heroic do-or-die charges into the Allied lines and gain some success but lose their own people. They hold ridges, allow the Allies, the British and Canadians, to come to them, and then they fall back to another ridge and repeat, and they do that up near point 103, which is a Sherwood Rangers 24th Lancers battle, which is probably only about 7 or 8 miles as the crow flies from where I am now. So, to connecting this to Villers-Bocage, my point is that the Germans are losing tank crews in these engagements they can't replace. The Allies are having some days that don't go perfectly to plan. No one would say that June the 13th went perfectly to plan for the British. Of course it didn't. When the column was stopping on point 213 and they were ambushed, of course that wasn't the plan. Of course it was not an ideal situation. Of course losing half tracks and Shermans was not good. But as the afternoon rolls on, as I said earlier, for every Allied vehicle, the Germans took out, the Allies took out 3 German vehicles. So it's, by the end of the day, it is an Allied victory, probably. Certainly, at very worst, June the 13th in Villers-Bocage is a draw, but it's definitely, absolutely trustworthy on this. It's not this massive, great German victory they've been banging on about, and not just the Germans, all the wereaboos. And I don't want to start listing all the Michael Reynolds and of this world, and the people writing in the 80s talking about how great the Germans were. Look how efficient they are. Look at their spotty camouflage. Look at their Panther tanks. Look at their Tigers. Look at how well they maneuvered there. Look at how the bravery of these Michael Wittmann dashing down the high street. Look at all this. Look at all that. But if Michael Wittmann is so good, why does he die in August? Why does he do another heroic charge as the Allies are pushing south of Coin Operation Totalize? Wittmann basically commits suicide by launching his Tigers straight up against Canadians on the left, British on the right, and dies in a stupid, futile, ridiculous effort. So I'm ranting a bit. Weather, Grant, would have been pretty much similar today. Just kind of a mixed June bag. Bit overcast when the sun comes out, bit of sun, but this is a typical weather. Then June the 19th, the bad weather sets in, and that brings us to storms. So by about the 17th, 18th, the wind is starting to pick up and it's starting to be less sunny. Then that storm hit for 3 or 4 days. So that is my little point here, that in this village church of Parfouru-sur-Odon are 3 German soldiers buried. The only place I know of where there are German soldiers buried in a churchyard. There are, of course, the large German cemeteries at Lacombe and Marigny and it's other places in Normandy. But this is the only one where there are 3 individual graves, and you can come and you can look up that guy on the internet and see what happened to him. But it's Panzer-Lehr basically, and they are in these engagements. June 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th. They are losing experienced crews. They cannot replace. So thanks, Tim. I enjoy my Wittmann rants as well. And the same applies to all these. If the Germans are putting these figures on this press pedestal it's because they've got nothing else. It's because they can't talk about the battle going their way. They can't talk about the fact they're winning the Normandy campaign, because they're clearly not. They're barely hanging on. Hitler's hamstringing his commanders by telling them to not fall back and hold every inch and do these do-or-die charges. And so all the Germans have to cling on to are these moments where a little bit of individual flair, short term, by some of these German commanders like Michael Wittmann, gains them some Allied losses, some scalps, if you like, and then they just ignore the second part of the day when they lose themselves. So the Germans are masters of spinning these engagements to look like these victories when in fact they're not. But I'm going to end it now. I might stop on the way back to Bayer, another place. But right now, I'm going to leave it now because these streams hammer the battery on my phone. But I hope you've enjoyed my ranting. And yeah, again, these incidents where the Germans gain a bit of head are against the run of play. The Allies are building up big war. And if I do a stop on the way back, which I think I will, I might do 2, definitely do one. It'll be about what the Allies are bringing to the table. Anyway, I'm going to end this now. See you all later. Give me maybe 20 minutes to get to the next location. Cheers. Bye.